Hello, 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 YouTubers. This is IMAXNation1980 here, continuing with my animation Ramble series, if you can call it that. In the last video, I talked about Zootopia, which is Walt Disney Animation Studios' next film, and I talked about that in great detail, and I talked about what I was looking forward to specifically in that film, and why I love the concept so much, and what I expect to see from it, and, many other things. So now I'm going to talk about Moana. Now, a lot of fans are aware of Moana. The thing about Moana is when it and Zootopia were sort of leaked to animation fans 2 summers ago, and yeah, it was almost exactly 2 summers ago. I think Honor Hunter of Blue Sky Disney leaked the information on Zootopia, Moana, Giants, and the untitled Dean Wellens Space Race movie. I think it was like in June 2013, or maybe July 2013. It was somewhere around there. It was shortly after Walt Disney Animation Studios announced their massive slate that went all the way up until 2018. And that slate, date-wise, has remained the same. So now, after Zootopia, which opens March 4th, 2016, comes Moana. And Moana, a lot of people knew before Disney even announced it, because everyone loved the idea of the next Disney film, a musical no less, being about a Polynesian heroine. And I just love the fact that Disney is going to Oceania for the setting and the islands, and just having that setting is already cool to begin with. And it's great to see, Disney being a little more diverse rather than doing the European fairy tale with Caucasian stars. It's kind of like the 90s and how they did Pocahontas and how they did Mulan, so I hope they, expand on that. Anyways, moving on. And there were a lot of details revealed at Cannes Film Festival recently, like Zootopia and like the upcoming Pixar films that were mentioned there, The Good Dinosaur, Finding Dory, and Toy Story 4. We'll get to those soon. And forgive me if my voice is off. This has been a very off day. I haven't been feeling so good, so I'm going to do the best I can. So, as we all know, up until now, Moana is set 2,000 years ago, and Moana, navigator and the daughter of a chief, she sets off on a voyage to explore the islands, because all the voyages that had happened in the past 1,000 years prior to the events of the story had stopped, and she wants to find out why. And after a very traumatic event, she sneaks away in a boat against her father's wishes, and she has 2 animal sidekicks, a pig named Poi and a rooster named Hai. And I assume they'll be like the Svens of the movie, or the Maximus of the movie, or the Pascal and Maximus of the movie, and that they'll be non-speaking comic relief characters, kind of like Flit, Miko, and Percy from Pocahontas, or, again, Maximus and Pascal from Tangled, and Sven from Frozen. There were rumors going around that she was also going to meet this talking tiki head. I think the name of the tiki head, I forget the name of the tiki head, but that was a rumor, but it wasn't mentioned in the recent Cannes report of the footage, or maybe the character just wasn't present in the footage. And the funny thing is, that rumor that said she'd meet a tiki head made no mention of a rooster, just a pig. But the Cannes footage says that there's a rooster, so maybe the rooster was a last-minute addition. I also wonder why a pig and a rooster, of all animals. I guess they come from a farm on the island? I don't know. So, as a lot of people know, she meets this demigod who's named Maui, who will be voiced by The Rock, and he has tattoos that come to life, and he also owns a magical sea hook. A lot of this also comes from the Cannes report on Variety, because I think it has a really detailed plot synopsis, and one of the best ones so far. Sometimes Disney will release a plot synopsis that's like kind of streamlined and kind of simplified, looks attractive on a PR-related thing, whereas something like this, it dives into the more interesting aspects of the plot. So I like the idea of all the supernatural stuff, and a lot of the earlier plot synopsises mentioned breathtaking underworlds and sea creatures and fiery spirits, and it's really cool that Disney is going to go back to that, a fairy tale with overt supernatural things. Like in Frozen, we did have, Elsa and her ice powers. I had the trolls, and she had Marshmallow, she created Marshmallow and Olaf, but I like that this is going even further into the whole fantasy thing. That's just really, really awesome. And then also with Tangled, with the healing flower and the healing hair, and other little things like that. But this seems like it'll have even more fantastical elements in it. I like the idea that there's beasts and underworlds and such, and stuff based on folklore. And I'm sure that they have a lot of consultants on the movie. I think I read something, because they did travel to the South Pacific for research. I remember when they announced that years ago at Comic-Con in 2012, that they were going to go to the South Pacific to do research for Ron Clements and John Musker's next project, because of course, if you've been following the news, you'll know that Ron Clements and John Musker, the Disney Dream Team, are directing and presumably writing this feature. And this is their first film since The Princess and the Frog, and yes, that's another reason you gotta go see it. That's another reason, we're all super excited. And it's going to be a musical. They said that the musical stuff that they previewed at Cannes was very reminiscent of Circle of Life from The Lion King. Was very reminiscent of Circle of Life. And it seems like it'll have that same epic scope that Lion King had. And, there's a lot of speculation over who's going to do the music, and there's rumors going around that it's going to be Alan Menken. I'm just going to be honest. I don't really want it to be Alan Menken, and I know I'm probably going to get a lot of hate mail. I'm probably going to get a lot of hate mail for saying that, but okay, I have nothing against Alan Menken. Alan Menken, I mean, come on. He, along with Howard Ashman, gave us some of the best Disney soundtracks and scores. And, his work with Ashman on Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin is impeccable. I'm not denying that. And a lot of his post-Ashman work is really, really good too. Like, I like the music he did for The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I like Stephen Schwartz's work on that film a lot. I think Hunchback has some of the best songs of the Disney Renaissance, songs like Heaven's Light, Hellfire, Bells of Notre Dame. Those are epic. Menken also did the music, not the lyrics, but the music for Hercules, and that was pretty good stuff too. So, yes, his post-Ashman work was certainly good, but here's the thing. I don't want him to do every single Disney musical. I remember he was supposed to do The Princess and the Frog, and everybody was disappointed when it was announced that Randy Newman was going to replace him. And a lot of people said that they didn't like Randy Newman's songs for The Princess and the Frog. They were like, oh, they were bland, oh, they were this, oh, they were that. I loved Randy Newman's songs for The Princess and the Frog. I will defend almost everything about that movie. I am a huge fan of that film, and I know that some people like to say, oh, it was this, oh, it was that. I'm a Princess and the Frog fan through and through. And again, I don't think Alan Menken should write the songs for every single Disney film, nor do I think every Disney movie musical should be a Broadway-esque musical reminiscent of the 90s films. We gotta explore different musical styles, and I think Moana poses a great opportunity for Disney to explore other musical styles other than just Broadway, because Frozen was Broadway. It was written by two Broadway people, the Lopez's, and they're, the songs that I liked in Frozen were certainly very, very good, but like I said, Frozen, Broadway, Frozen 90s Disney style, musical numbers, I don't think should be applied to every future Disney musical. I think there should be some diversity there, and I would like Moana to, go a different route, do something different for once, and if Alan Menken is up for doing a musical that's not anything like the 90s Disney musicals or Frozen, I say go for it. But at the same time, I want to see somebody else, try their hand at it. Because, Alan Menken, look at how it worked for Lion King. We had Elton John, we had Tim Rice, and look what happened there. The Lion King soundtrack is one of the most beloved. And Phil Collins did a very divisive soundtrack for Tarzan, but it was undeniably a hit. Tarzan was a hit back in the day. It may seem a bit strange now because Disney all but forgets the films that aren't the size of Lion King or Beauty and the Beast or Frozen. Tarzan, its soundtrack was popular back in the day. So, now that Disney is back to making musicals on a regular basis, rather than in the early to mid-2000s where you would only get a musical film once in a while, or a film that had songs in it but weren't sung by the characters, something like Brother Bear. Phil Collins sings all those songs off screen. Treasure Planet has that one song, I'm Still Here, but it's not a music or song driven film. Atlantis has no songs at all, thankfully, and because songs would totally not fit in that picture. ditto Lilo and Stitch, but Lilo and Stitch uses Hawaiian songs and Elvis Presley songs, so it is a music-driven film, but in a different way. It differentiated Lilo and Stitch from the other Disney musicals, and it fit with the modern setting of the film while still feeling timeless, because Elvis Presley's music is certainly timeless. And I'm like waffling on about this stuff, but basically, I'd like to see them find somebody different, somebody unexpected for Moana's music and soundtrack. I love the plot, I love the setting, and the whole thing with all the supernatural stuff, that really intrigues me, because if anyone should do fantasy like that, it's Disney Animation, and Moana is sure to, blow us out of the water, no pun intended. So, for a couple of years, and ever since the project was announced, it was suggested that the techniques they've used for Paperman and Feast, the two short films, will be applied to Moana. Like, Moana will be Paperman and Feast, but in movie form. And, those are just mere rumors. They keep advertising, they keep mentioning that it's a CG picture. But I don't think any animation for Moana has even been attempted yet or even completed, let alone completed. Zootopia, from what I know, because I follow a lot of Disney animators on Twitter, I think, from what I've seen of their tweets, that some shots of the film have been completed. I don't know if they show those at Cannes, because I didn't see any mention of what the animation looked like. They were just talking about what was in the actual footage, like what happened, what the situations were. So maybe they didn't show that stuff, but I don't think Moana is in full production yet, because I think Disney starts these films less than a year before they come out. Like, I think Frozen began animation production in like March of 2013, which was just, what, 8 months away from the film's release? But, it's not a problem, because they can create such high-quality animation in such a short span of time. That's how amazing the technology has evolved, and they did the same thing with Ralph, and I presume they did the same thing with Big Hero 6, because we didn't see stuff from that film, and I didn't hear anything about actual animation production beginning until, early on in the year 2014, last year, when it came out. So yeah, because Zootopia is more than 8 months away, I bet there's some animation that's been completed, but maybe it's in full production. I don't know. Maybe it's going to premiere much earlier than March 2016, because March 4th, 2016 is the general release date. The premiere can be like in February or January. I'm probably getting ahead of myself here, but those tweets do indicate to me that the movie is in full production, but I don't think Moana is going to begin production this early. So that being said, it's still up in the air whether Moana will be just another CG Disney film with that painterly style, or it will be, Paperman/Feast, the movie. I certainly hope it will be. But, in all, Moana sounds like it has a lot of potential. It has a really cool sounding plot. It's sure to have a lot of heart. It's sure to have a lot of humor. It's sure to have a lot of surprises. And, with a musical, the songs should be very, very good. The songs should strengthen the picture. They shouldn't just feel tacked on. And, yes, you might be thinking, what did you think of the songs in Tangled and Frozen? Well, I think a majority of the songs in Frozen fit the story in the picture. I don't like Fixer Upper. So, yeah, sharpen those pitchforks. I did not like Fixer Upper at all, and I thought that it did nothing for the story. You can disagree with me all you want, but I could have done without that song. And also, as for Tangled, there's not a single song in that movie I dislike, and I think the songs all complement the story very, very well. I just don't think they're the best. I think they could have used a little more oomph in a way. But, they were good for what they were, and I like that they were quieter. They weren't like big Broadway numbers. They weren't bombastic. They felt Broadway-ish in a way, but like a quieter kind of Broadway. I really shouldn't be talking because I don't know musical theater too much, but I'm just going to put it this way. The music in Tangled was kind of like a quieter version of the 90s Disney kind of songs. Like the Tavern song definitely reminds me of Gaston, but much quieter and much less bombastic. And, for some, the songs don't have much of a, staying power because of that. But for me, since they work within the narrative and they're catchy and I enjoy them, I think they're good. I think I'd give the songs alone about an 8 out of 10. I'd say the one truly phenomenal song in that movie is I See the Light. Now, that's a great song. But everything else, very pretty to very good. Same thing with Frozen. I mean, Let It Go is very, very good. I mean, although I've heard it a gazillion times, and I'm annoyed as hell with it. I am annoyed as hell of it. I'm not going to dock the song. I'm not going to rip points off of the song just because of that. It's still a very, very good song. I might as well say Stairway to Heaven is not all that good because it's been overplayed to death. And I'm just not going to do that because Stairway to Heaven is still an excellent song. An overplayed Beatles song is still an excellent song. So Let It Go is still very, very good, even if it has been drilled into our brains and slammed into our ears and shoved down our throats, along with the rest of the movie, but I'm still not going to deny that Let It Go is, a good song. And a lot of the other songs in Frozen I like too. I like most of First Time in Forever, and Frozen Heart, really good. Voile, if that's how it's pronounced, really good. So, but I don't like Fixer Upper, and In Summer's all right. And Love is an Open Door, all right, I guess. Catchy. But I just didn't care for the way they sang it and the lyrics, that, like, oh my god, Jinx again. It's like, eh. So, those both had good, not great, but good song selections. I still prefer the Princess and the Frog soundtrack. I'm sorry, I love all the songs in that movie, and I love the score. I love its mix of jazz and, Zydeco and, all that kind of stuff. Please forgive me if I pronounce that wrong. I should know how that's pronounced, but I don't. So, yeah, those are my opinions on the recent Disney soundtracks, and hopefully Moana is really, really good, and all the songs are just excellent. And they fit the story at the same time, and they're not just phoned in. They're not just there for the sake of having songs. Because I think once we got into the late 90s, they started to feel a little phoned in. Like, I don't think Mulan would have been any different if you took the songs out of that movie, but you could disagree with me all you want on that. I'm not trying to say that, songs like Reflection and, Honor to Us All are bad songs. I mean, they're okay. And I'll Make a Man Out of You, I'll admit, is a guilty pleasure, and I do not like A Girl Worth I can't talk tonight. A Girl Worth Fighting For. I don't like that song at all, and I don't like its placement in the movie. I like all of Tarzan's songs, except for Trashing the Camp. That belongs in a different animated movie altogether. It's catchy, but it just doesn't fit the movie it's in. So Eisner-era Disney then moved into a more experimental era, the early 2000s, with movies like Emperor's New Groove, Atlantis, Treasure Planet, Lilo and Stitch, films that closed the door on the 90s Broadway musical or Broadway-esque musical format. So the next one you really have to talk about is Brother Bear, and I think most of Colin's songs in that movie are phoned in. I love Transformation, though. That is an excellent song. And I don't mind Great Spirits either, but the other songs, they sound nice, but I just don't think they really suit the story. They feel like they're just thrown in there just for the sake of being there. And it makes me wonder if Brother Bear was ever, conceived as a musical from the get-go. Like an actual, break into song kind of musical, or just a movie with songs over it. Because in the early 2000s, we started to see a sort of trend of songs playing in the background, like in Shrek. DreamWorks, of course. DreamWorks Shrek. And they would kind of take that further. There's nothing wrong with that, though, as long as it's done right, because I really, really love I'm Still There. I'm Still Here from Treasure Planet. I think that song really, really, really works, but I'm Still Here, it's a nice addition. I think it's a really great, I think it's a good song. I may not like the overall way it was recorded or how they did it, but I think lyrically and in terms of the story, it really suits the film. Like, it really fits in the film. And then there's Home on the Range, and I'm gonna admit, even though I think Home on the Range is one of the worst things Walt Disney Animation Studios has ever made, the music is actually not too bad. And almost all the songs in that movie are not musical numbers, and as far as I know, the plan was to make Home on the Range a musical. It was supposed to be the first musical since Mulan where they actually sang and actually went through with them. I mean, I'm not talking about Brother Bear where Coda starts singing I'm on my way and then it goes to Phil Collins singing. That doesn't count to me. That's just him starting the musical number and then Phil Collins off screen finishing it. And the same thing with, theme song guy from Emperor's New Groove. That's just sort of a parody song more than anything. And it's only just one song in that whole musicless movie, songless movie. So, yeah, in short, I'm Still Here. I like Transformation, and this is going nowhere. I did like Alan Menken's songs for Home on the Range. They weren't anything special, but they were much better than most of the movie, that's for sure. I mean, I think most animation fans will tell you that they like When Will the Sun Shine Again, and a lot of animation fans will tell you that they kind of played that song in their heads when thinking about the demise of traditional animation. So, okay, moving on. Moana? Of course, why would I not be excited for Moana? I'm a Walt Disney Animation Studios fanatic through and through, and I think they've been so good as of late, ever since John Lasseter and, ever since Michael Eisner was, stepped down as CEO from Disney. I think Walt Disney Animation Studios, now that the people there, the talented folks there, are allowed to do what they want to do. They're, very filmmaker driven, and they want to make good decisions for their films. Now that they're allowed to do that, and there's no executives breathing down their necks telling them what to do, I think they've gotten, so good. A lot of people say the comeback began with Tangled, or Wreck-It Ralph, or Frozen, or The Princess and the Frog. I think it began with Meet the Robinsons. But I'm not here to talk about that right now. I'm going to move on to what Disney Animation could possibly put out next.